Welcome back to Tears for Fears. I'm your host, Megan Shoup. You can follow me on Twitter at Megs08DFS. And was week 9 brutal for you too? Because it was for me. So I'm very ready to move on to week 10 and go tier by tier and find our best plays. But before we do, I need you to do 3 things. Be sure to like this episode. Of course, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network and check out Run the Sims. Run the Sims is going to help us make our tiers decisions all year long. So with that, let's get right to it. As always, before we look ahead, let's take a quick look back. And I'm going to show you the top couple winning lineups for week 9. And there's a point to this. And the reason I wanted to show you this is you don't have to find low ownership everywhere. And I think I've made this point before, but I've done some research on the data after each week. And it's really averaging about 2 tiers where the top 1% is getting sub 15% owned plays. This is the winning lineup, and as you can see, they only had one, James Conner, and that was obviously an outlier with Chase Edmonds going down, but they got him very low owned at 4%. We look at the second place lineup, they were able to get 2 plays sub 15%. Cook in tier 3 and Conner in tier 8. So it's really about an average of 2 tiers that you are trying to get those low owned guys, those sub 15% owned guys. So just keep that in mind. I typically like to find it in tiers 5 through 8. But again, if you see a leverage spot where you think you can get it, like they got Dalvin Cook in tier 3, then go for it. So with that, let's move on to week 10. All right, in tier 1, we have Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Dak Prescott. And I'm honestly not fading any of these guys because I see a ceiling potential for all these quarterbacks. So I'll be rotating through all these plays. But I do have a favorite play, and let me tell you a story. I feel like Sophia on Golden Girls. Picture it. It's 2014, December. Washington's horrible. They're rotating through RG3, Colt McCoy, Kirk Cousins. The defense is bad. The team's bad. I'm in pain. How do I express that pain? I play the Rams defense and 3, I think at that time, St. Louis Rams. And then because of that, I was able to get all these other studs in. And I win my first DFS tournament for $5,000. Then I'm hooked. So what is the moral of this story? When you're in pain because of your team, which I am now, just play the other team against them in DFS. So what am I going to do here? Yeah, Tom Brady may not have the highest ceiling when we look at projections, but he's got the highest ceiling in my heart. And I did this with Patrick Mahomes a few weeks ago, and it didn't quite work, but I really think it's going to work here with the GOAT. So Tom Brady is my tier 1 play. In tier 2, we have Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, and Dalvin Cook. And as you can see, we have some injury situations to pay attention to here. I think Kamara is more at risk of missing and I think Harris was more of a maintenance day because he practiced in full on Wednesday. But obviously pay attention to all the injury situations leading up into Sunday. But Alvin Kamara is the only one I'm fading here. Again, obviously he's a little banged up, but he's also, with his quarterback situation, with Mark Ingram kind of eating into his workload, I just can't pay up for that in tier 2. So my core plays are Jonathan Taylor, Najee Harris, Christian McCaffrey, and Dalvin Cook. And if you want to take an ownership stand early, Christian McCaffrey is your guy. I mean, this guy still is Christian McCaffrey in his ceiling. He only got 5 targets last week. So if he gets more targets this week, I easily could see him being able to hit the ceiling despite his quarterback situation. But I love all of Taylor, Harris, and Cook, and I was having problems deciding, so I ran over to Run the Sims, went over to the rangefinder tool. I plugged in Najee Harris and Jonathan Taylor, and I also did with the same with Dalvin Cook too. And Harris had a slightly higher win rate than both of them. So for this tier 2, Najee Harris is our play. In tier 3, we have Austin Eckler, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin, and A.J. Brown. And the Chris Godwin situation really needs to be monitored because he has not practiced yet so far this week, and there's a real chance he could miss this game. Now, if he gets into practice and plays, I definitely still have interest in Chris Godwin. So for that reason, there's really nobody in this tier I'm going to totally fade because I can see a potential ceiling for all these guys. Yes, some are more boom bust than others. But for that reason, Devontae Adams is my favorite play because he has that best floor ceiling combination of all these guys. And he should have Aaron Rodgers back this week. And you can attack the Seahawks in the air. So for all those reasons, Devontae Adams is my tier 3 play. In Tier 4, we have Nick Chubb, Mike Evans, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, and Stephon Diggs. As you can see, again, we need to monitor the injury situations. As of now, Chubb is on the COVID-19 list and is very unlikely to play. But again, always monitor things going into Sunday. I know this is getting old, but I really can't see a major fade spot here. So I'm going to have exposure, a little bit of exposure to all these guys, Evans, Jefferson, Lamb, Allen, and Diggs. I mean, I'd say I'm going to have a little more exposure to Lamb and Evans than the rest of them, but I'm going to have exposure to all of them. Who am I going to play the most? Who's my favorite play? Well, let's go back to Tier 1. Of course, it's Mike Evans. First of all, if Chris Godwin is out, that just narrows the target tree. But again, I'm playing these players against Washington. We've got one of the league's worst secondaries going up against one of the league's best offenses. It's kind of a no-brainer play. I'm going Bucks. I'm going Mike Evans in Tier 4. In Tier 5, we have Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Ryan Tannehill, and Teddy Bridgewater. And I'm going to fade or have very low exposure to the three guys that have either very low pass rate over expectation or just aren't going to have many passing attempts this game, either due to game script or matchup. And those three guys are Hurts, Cousins, and Bridgewater. Listen, they're not going to have a lot of passing attempts most likely, so that means they're going to have to pop in an end zone or get there with their legs, and that just makes it tougher for them to get to their ceiling. So for that reason, my core plays are Matt Ryan, Ryan Tannehill, and Carson Wentz. And, when I go over to the Run the Sims percentile projections, of those three quarterbacks, Wentz is by far the highest ceiling and the highest win rate. So for Tier 5, Carson Wentz is the play. In Tier 6, we have DK Metcalf, DeAndre Swift, Ezekiel Elliott, Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, and Aaron Jones. And it's funny, no matter if it's the early or late tiers, sometimes you love a lot of the plays, and then sometimes you really don't love any of them. And I really am not in love with any of these plays. So I can find some easy fades or low exposure. Quickly, Aaron Jones is splitting the backfield now with A.J. Dillon. Adam Thielen does much better against man-to-man, and this is a zone coverage defense against the Chargers. And DeAndre Swift, he really has to get it all in pass work against a tough Steelers defense. So that leaves my core plays as Metcalf, Elliott, and Deontay Johnson. And, with Russell Wilson just coming back, I'm going to play Metcalf. He's going to be one of my core plays, but I'm really deciding between Elliott and Deontay Johnson as my favorite play. So let's go over to Run the Sims. And as you can see, I put them in the rangefinder tool. And very slightly, Ezekiel Elliott has a higher win rate. So Elliott is my Tier 6 play. In Tier 7, we have Cordarrelle Patterson, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman Jr., DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, James Conner, and Chase Claypool. And first of all, I think Claypool looks like is going to be out this weekend. As far as other guys I'm fading or going to have low exposure to, a lot of them are the boom bust guys like Cooper and Lockett. And DJ Moore is very hard to trust with his current quarterback situation. So that makes my core plays Patterson, Mike Williams, Michael Pittman Jr., and James Conner. And I know Mike Williams can be boom bust too, but he's got a really good matchup this week against the Vikings. They're giving up a lot to the outside perimeter receivers. I love Michael Pittman Jr. against the Jaguars, obviously, but I love the floor ceiling combos for both Patterson and James Conner. But with Chase Edmonds out, Connor's the guy. He's already a touchdown monster. Everything's kind of lining up there for a good floor ceiling combo or the best floor ceiling combo. And so for that reason, James Conner is my Tier 7 play. And in Tier 8, we have Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, Damian Harris, Kyle Pitts, Devonta Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Julio Jones, and Russell Gage. And first of all, it looks like there's a very strong chance that both Brown and Harris will be out this weekend. And then there's a lot of other guys I just simply don't like their spots at all. So really, this is another tier where I'm not in love with many. But the ones I do love are the ones that are going to be my core plays are going to be Leonard Fournette, Kyle Pitts, and Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy's getting the targets since he's been back. So is Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts could be in for a monster game here. But again, I'm going floor ceiling combination. I'm going back to my Tier 1 story with Brady and the Bucks. What if I tried to get all of the Buccaneers touchdowns, access to all of their touchdowns if I play Leonard Fournette? Well, that's what I'm going to do because I think they're going to score over 35 points this week. So Leonard Fournette is my tier 8 play. That'll do it for this week's Tears for Fears. Thank you so much for joining me. What do you think about my lineup? How did I do? Please let me know in the comments, but also let me know your core plays and fades. But before we get out of here, please be sure to like this episode and subscribe to the Mayo Media Network and check out Run the Sims. As you can see from the rangefinder tool and the percentile projections, it helps me make my tiers decisions and it can for you too. So now let's go make some money and I'll see you back here next week.